And hello, welcome to the Social Justice Forums. I am Daren Jaime. We thank you for joining us. If you are asking the question, what is the show all about? Well, we bring you a forum discussing and providing the deeper understanding on the issues, the inequities that so many people face. Things from systemic inequalities to pressing social problems. Our guests provide multiple perspectives as well as insights, helping us better understand and address these challenges. We also have very special guests, so we invite you to stay connected to us as the Social Justice Forum starts now. And welcome back. Groomed behind the scenes is a talented artist. Davo has penned and produced numerous records for today's biggest names in the game. Comes at no surprise that his musical lineage traces back to Bob Marley, inheriting his passion from his father. We've got now joining us the actor, the singer, David Marvin Kerr Jr., also known as Davo. And listen, we want to thank you, first of all, for being with us. It's an honor.
Man. Thank you, guys.
It's a good time to have you.
Amazing time, man. The time is now.
Film is rolling.
Yeah, number one.
Number one.
Number one,
we want to say number one out there, right? Congratulations, and
time.
thank you for being with us. How does it feel, first of all, to see the film be number one?
Oh, man, I just want to give all, the glory to God, The message is everything, The name of the title, One Love, It's about bringing everybody together. I feel like that was, Bob's true, reason for being here. He was a messenger, of God. Mm-hmm. And, he was black and white, and it's all about bringing everybody together and feeling all right, just like the song,
Yeah.
Let's get together.
When you think about the journey, right, and where you are today and his life, your life, and then to look at the film and say, wow, we're number one.
Yeah.
Because this is based on life experience. This ain't just a film. This is a film that's based on life.
Yeah, it's history.
Right. So to hit number one.
Black history,
Right. What is that for you?
I mean, to be a part of the legacy it's quite surreal, to be a part of it, to be able to carry on my family legacy as my dad's son, to just, to be able to represent with pure authenticity, My dad would tell me stories. I brought a lot of that to the film when we were shooting. There's a lot of times that I was like, well, this is what happened, and this is what we should put this in there. Couple. When you see it and you see my part, you'll see there's a lot of humorous parts, and there's actual parts stories that my dad told me that I kind of threw in there.
Yeah.
So
your creative genius kicked in too?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with the music and everything, I actually played the guitar for real. So, that was a good addition to the film, to have real life, actual instrumentalists, musicians a part of the film, Right.
Yeah. So you're at number one right now. People are definitely coming out. But the end game is what do you want people to take away from watching the film?
Just pure vibes, positive vibrations. That's what it's all about. Spreading the message and getting to know Bob as a personally. A lot of people, especially this young generation, they don't know what Bob Marley's really all about. They see him and they think, Rasta man, marijuana and stuff like that. But it's deeper than just the things that people try to paint him. It's just he has an image that's very big, but they don't really know the true message behind all the music. Mm-hmm. So in the film, you get to, elaborate on his life and what his struggles and what he had to overcome to become, this guy.
So for you, what was the moment when you recognized how big he was?
Well, growing up, I was always used to being in, around. I was born remembering just being in the studio at an early age, just playing the drums, and everything was natural to me. It never really seemed as big as it really is. So I think in high school, maybe in middle school, everyone was always come up to me and be like, can you believe your dad is, part of the legendary Wailers? Your dad played with Bob Marley, oh my God. And I'll be like, okay, I never really thought how big it was. And then until I was in high school, I was like, everyone always told me you look like your dad. So I felt like I had to do something with carrying on the legacy, Mm-hmm. I always felt like it was my part to do something to be a part of,
right.
what they left behind. So I always would play instruments growing up, and I just started studying more, like studying more about Marley, the um, the interviews, watching, the shows, and just rehearsing, like learning all the songs, playing, going. I used to do guitar lessons in high school, and I feel like that helped a lot with getting this part as well.
So, beyond the movie,
Yeah.
there's you yourself, right? And his musical influences played a part in your life. Talk to me about where you are right now. You got some singles coming out, and
Yeah, I've been working with a lot of influential artists growing up. I got a lot of people started in recording just because of my family being so musically oriented because of my father. We always had studios in like my house, so friends would come over, and they would record early on, and I got a lot of like relationships with big artists through that growing up. So I got started out early working with Tory Lanez and a few other artists. I went on tour with Drake and Chris Brown and all these guys opening up with them. So, I mean, I got my feet wet, and then I kind of like when I got the movie, I was supposed to put on my album around the same time. So I was like, you know what, this is a serious role. I gotta just, saying, keying on like, becoming an actual actor, like, just
Right.
studying the lines, practicing, being on set every day. It was a lot, so I didn't think it was a good time to release the album. So I feel like now is a perfect time because it's out,
right,
it's doing
movie's out.
great. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
What better time than that?
Multi-talented. You know what I'm saying? Multi-talented. Megastar time. Time to go up on both sides.
Looking forward.
Trying to do some more films.
Talk to me about the acting
Going number
perspective,
one.
though, because even though it's your life, right, and it's
Yeah,
your
yeah.
life, and it's life story. The fact of the matter is, you still have to be able to act. So,
Yeah, exactly.
What was that like? Getting in the grind,
Get-
getting into character.
So like first, before even getting into that, was getting the role.
Right.
It's like I reached out to a casting agency from Jamaica called KBC Casting. Kareen, she's amazing. She casts a lot of She casted a lot of the Jamaican cast from the film. She's amazing. Her team. My sister sent me the casting call on Instagram, and I was like, wow, this didn't seem real. It didn't seem real to me. I was focused on mixing and mastering my album, so I was like, yeah, didn't seem real. I was like, I asked my dad about it. He didn't even know about it, and he was like, I don't know. So I was just like, all right, whatever, push it to the side. Then one day I thought about it. I was like, you know what? If this is a real thing, I'll be pissed off if someone's like playing my dad and it's not me. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel like growing up, I've like literally him. So I went back and looked at it again. I seen Paramount at the top. I was like, whoa, Paramount. I was like, hold on. Let me message
whole
these
world,
people.
right?
Let me see what's going on really. I was like, I hope y'all didn't pick no one from my dad because I see y'all have a casting call. And they were like, well, I was like, look at him, look at me, do you want me to connect y'all and stuff? They were like, we just need to see if you can act. So I was like, okay. I was actually working on some like TV show pilot with Tory Lanez. And so I was already into acting a lot. I do a lot of acting in my music videos and stuff like that. So, like growing up, I was always into, drama class and all that type of stuff. So I did they sent me a script. I did like a video audition to send in. And when I did it, it was like, they never asked me to bring out the guitar, but there was a scene where it was like I was meeting Bob, and they were like, "Oh, play this," and it pretty much was just asking me to do dialogue. But I brought the guitar in anyway, and I played some guitar in between, sent it back, and they were like, "Whoa, you can play the guitar?" I was like, "Yeah, I mean that's my dad, I mean he's
Right.
a legend. I might as well. I should play the guitar, right?
Right.
It should make sense." So they were like, "Nah, the director, this is urgent. They want to see more clips of you playing." So I sent them like 2 different songs. I think it was like Redemption Song, Waiting in Vain solo. And they were like, wow, this is amazing. They were like, can you work from here to there? I was like, of course I can. For my dad to play in the Bob Marley film, #1, of course.
Right.
Paramount, no doubt about it. So that was amazing. Getting on set now, it was like mind-blowing experience. Being around actors like Kingsley and my director, Ray Ronaldo, he did the Serena Williams movie with Will Smith. What is it?
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes, we both right.
King Richards. Yeah, he directed King Richards. He did Top Boy with Michael Ward. Michael Ward's in the film. He's amazing. He's Jamaican as well. Kingsley, Lashana Lynch, Tossin Cole, all these big, actors and actresses, being around them was a very humbling experience. You know, to see them in character, and like to see Kingsley take on the role of Bob. Also, the guy who played young Bob, he's like in the same field as me. He's an artist as well. His name is Quan Deja. He's like amazing playing young Bob. He captured his spirit, like, you know, his embodied his character very well. So those two guys, everyone else, watching them, you know, like especially Kingsley, like it's like it's like a dream come true for me because I always wanted to really like. I feel like I was meeting Bob, like when we were doing my first dialogue scene, I kind of got lost in it. Oh, this microphone kind of. Oops.
You there?
Let me click this. Yeah, so kind of got lost in the scene where I felt like I was just actually talking to my uncle. Like Bob's like, you know what I'm saying, telling me something, and I didn't even like realize that we were on set for us because we were doing it so much. It felt like it was just natural, you know. And he's so good at acting. I mean, like, big up, you know. Shouts out to Kingsley, man. He's a goat, man. To play Bob Marley, I feel like that's the hardest thing any man would have to do.
And you feel like you did,
He did an amazing job. Amazing job. Speaking Jamaican, he's not even Jamaican, you know? His family is Caribbean, and he's from London. It's an easy transition, I feel like, for most Londoners. They speak Jamaican really well.
Yeah, they do.
But he definitely tapped in to catch Bob Marley's tone and, you know, his vibe and his mannerisms is like, you know? That's very, like, amazing to witness that in actual, like, you know, real time. Seeing him, like, you know, do it over and over. And he was very affirmative in like getting Bob's message across and like being as true to Bob, you know, because it's Hollywood, you know, at the end of the day.
Right.
But he was like, you know, this is what we're doing. I'm making sure that's what it is. Like he was trying to make sure certain things like got into the film. Like he was studying Bob for years.
And you were doing the same thing
Yeah, and
too.
I was doing that growing up. So
Right.
me witnessing him being so passionate about it is what like you know made me so excited just to be in like you know like in the film and around him. It was just a humbling experience, man.
I gotta ask you a
Great.
couple more questions before we get out of here. Well, number one, I want to ask you about this. You get to the premiere, you get to see yourself, right?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that because every actor has that fear of
Oh,
like,
man.
listen, like you know, what was that? What was that like? You were saying, oh, I hope these people.
Man, it was amazing because the reaction from we did the first premiere was in Jamaica, so to see it at home, like where I'm born, you know, and to hear people's reaction was everything to me. I mean, it was the most like, all right, so the movie is very serious. You know, Bob's life is very serious. There's a lot of like politics in the beginning of it, and then when I come in, it's kind of like, I would say like Bob was looking for a sound, like, you know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like came in kind of like a savior, like, yo, I'm the guy, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
So when I came in, everybody, it was like a light, you know, just coming in out of a dark place, because they were searching and they were going through a lot at the time. And I had like some humorous parts, so everybody was laughing, you know, it was a good vibe, like when I came on the scene, you know, like, it's electrifying, just like the guitar, you know. So I came in, you just see the guitar, and it's like, and then everybody's like, who is this guy? Like, who does this guy think he is? Like, you know what I'm saying? Top star boy, you know, kind of vibe. So I mean, it was very amazing to hear the reaction of the people and everybody was there. Like, whoa, like, you know, a lot of people there knew me, so they were like bigging me up as the scene came on. And then people were laughing so much I couldn't even hear my first like couple lines. So I was like, yo, everybody be quiet, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to see what's going on, I'm trying to hear it. And it was like I see myself as a giant, you know, on a big screen, and it's like whoa, like, you know, even hearing my dialogue back, it was amazing because I play a jam Brit. My dad is Jamaican British, so he's born in Jamaica, but he grew up in London. So I had a bit of an British accent, you know what I mean? Feel me? So hearing it back, I was just like, dang, that sounded really good. Like, you know, I didn't even, like, I never heard it back. So it was a great experience, man. My mom was there, my dad, you know. There's like, you know, reggae royalty at that point, you know.
You gotta love it.
Yeah,
I gotta get to your singles before we go. Got some new singles, got some music coming out.
Yeah, man, I got some big
Tell us what's happening so we know to look out
man,
for.
I got this single called On the Run, you know. and it's crazy because I'm literally on the run right now, like, you know, with the music and in the film, like a lot of interviews and, you know, getting around, meeting people and stuff like that, doing a lot of screenings and stuff. And the song is it's just basically, you know, it's a representation of what I'm going through right now. And then the next single is with my brother Tory Lanez, and it's a bit of it's a very inspirational song. It's called Been Through It All, you know? Me and Tory have been through it all, literally, like, since he was, like, 10 years old, he used to come to my house to record. So that's what I was talking about when kids would come over to the neighborhood. And I think his first record he ever did was with my little brother in my house. So we kind of got him into recording, you know, and then he was just so good at rapping that, you know, he started singing, and, you know, we both started singing around the same time. Because, like, I was always singing Bob Marley, but I never really tapped into the R&B, you know, because, you know, when you're young, you're trying to be cool. You know, like, singing is for, you know,
for me, right?
Yeah, so eventually I started realizing, I was like, singing is for getting all the girls, you know what I'm saying? So I was like, this is the right path for us. And, you know, we started doing art, you know, like guys like Usher definitely inspired us when he came out with a lot of big records back in the day. Yeah. And Chris Brown came out early on, and it was like, whoa. You know, we teamed up with Chris Brown. He's a great brother, man, you know. He looks out for us a lot. Like, he brought us on tour, Indigo tour. He's a very humble, you know, for his like level. Yeah, he's very humble. You know, like he definitely like brought us in like brothers, and yeah, man. Shouts out to Chris.
So before we go, now you have the acting bug. You took advantage of it. Now you're number one.
Hey, man. More movies on the way.
That's
you know
what I'm gonna say. Like, so what can we?
I'm a big fan of Ice Cube, Tupac, you know what I'm saying, when it comes to like film. So I'm very like, I'm a comic, like.
You wanna do a comedy?
Yeah, I wanna do some comedy, you know what I'm saying? I wanna do some action, you know. Chris Tucker, he's my number one comedian, like. Okay. So you see how you do a little Rush Hour, that type of vibes I'm trying to be. I wanna do some for the black community, you know what I'm saying? So the kids can see that, you know, like, there's like more, like I wanna put messages, like how Ice Cube has messages in his films, you know? When his dad was like, Clarence Weatherspoon, rest in peace. He was like, oh, you know, put the gun down, son. You know, you gotta live to fight another day. Like, you know, I feel like we're lacking that in the movies right now in film. Like, there's not much for the community, as in when it comes to just having messages behind the movie, behind the picture, you know?
Well, I want you to know you're giving something to the community right now.
Hey, man.
Number one.
One love, man.
That's it. Davo, thank you so much for being with us.
Won't stop, baby.
Yes, sir.
To the top.
All right, listen. Take a quick break.
One love forever.
Back. One love. One love.
Blessings,
We'll talk to you in a
blessings,
minute.
my brother.
Right back after this.
We can't get anything done in this world that's so interdependent without communication. And certainly community-based media is really the core of that.
You guys do a great service to the city of New York, to the communities within that city, and really for the entire state of New York. Telling the residents firsthand what's happening out there. It's very important that we keep your facility going for as long as possible.
We talk about the Bronx. We talk about it being a borough of opportunities, a global destination. We want to make sure that we create access and opportunity for future generations, creating local jobs, stimulating our economy, giving young people opportunities like internships that will not lead to jobs, but will lead to careers.
Hey everyone, it's your girl Kat from the Kitty Rose Lifestyle, also from The Next Chapter, where we discuss shades of gray every week right here at BronxNet, Saturdays at 11 p.m. Wow, 30 years. 30 years of BronxNet public access television. I'm a girl from Brooklyn and came to the Bronx 25 years ago, started my journey on BronxNet on public access television in 2016. And BronxNet is where I got my start. BronxNet, I feel like, is a home away from home. They support all of my endeavors, and I wouldn't have been able to be on any of the other channels if it wasn't for the fundamentals that I learned right here at my start here at BronxNet. So I am so appreciative. My son says I should stop telling people I'm from Brooklyn because I've been here now, Bronx strong, for 22 years. So I'm so grateful, and I wish you much success in 30 years, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30 more, because public access is necessary so that people like myself can have a voice. Yes, BronxNet, it's your girl Kat from Kitty Rose. Check me out every Saturday at 11 p.m. right here, Channel 68, The Next Chapter, where we discuss shades of gray. Mwah.
And we are back. The book, The Gap, I should say, Addressing Inequities for Black Women in Gender Equity Strategies, explores how companies inadvertently hinder the success of Black women, preventing them from realizing their full potential. Joining me now is the CEO and founder of Benefactum Consulting, Leanne Mair. We thank you so much, Leanne, for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Glad
Thank you for having me.
No, listen, it's our pleasure. It's our pleasure, really, to have you as we discuss this, because when I think about gender equity, I think that we've come ways. But the fact of the matter is we still have a long ways to go. How do you view gender equity right now?
You're right, and I concur to the same fact that we still have a long way to go. And I think linguistically, we're still focused heavily on gender equality, which is looking for parity with men, but we're still not necessarily investigating enough the disparities amongst women, which was a motivation for my book, which is, especially here, you have different equal pay days in recognition of that. So while we are making progress, there's still a lot of research that still says we have an inordinately long way to go, but I am still hopeful with the work that I do and also with writing this book that we can still continue to make significant change in the course of the next 3 to 5 years.
Well, I'll tell you, if you don't know, I didn't mention the intro, she does have a book, Closing the Gap, How to Include Black Women in Gender Equity Strategy, released in the UK. But when we talk about the fact that what goes on in the UK is mirrored right here in the United States, there's no difference there when it comes to gender equity. Talk to me about how it's the same everywhere.
It is completely the same everywhere. And I think the nuances, the willingness to engage with the topic is the difference. And also to add, the release was in the US, was on the 30th of January this year. The topic is really, when I say evergreen, it's the same challenges that we're facing. I would say the difference in progress is that in the US, there's an openness to engage in the topic. In the UK, you're seeing that same thing. But as we move throughout different regions in Europe, there's definitely a reluctance to really engage in specificity, both organizationally and also from a societal perspective, and even talking about the topic, as in broaching gender equity very specifically and how we can flatten the hierarchy amongst women. And this is a theme everywhere. And this is why we're seeing a lot more organizations focusing, especially within the European space and the UK space, focusing on Black women, because we are unfortunately an overlooked demographic. But from an organizational perspective, a lot of organizations feel as though they don't want to engage with this topic. Sometimes it's deliberate, sometimes it's unintentional, but it still leads to the same output and outcome, which is not creating a culture and an environment that allows Black women to thrive in the ways that they should.
When we talk about not broaching the topic, obviously we know that there's, that's a large faction of people who don't want to broach the topic. But let's broach the topic. How do we get to making these addressing some of the systemic stuff that we actually see from a grassroots level? What can we do?
And that's, where I started in my book was context. And a lot of the time we jump into the problem without necessarily spending a little bit more time around the context. What is the context of corporate culture? How did this construction come about? And in many cases, yes, there are intentional situations or unintentional things that happen. But when we look at pay gaps were an intentional mechanism because one of the main women were not openly welcome within the workforce. It was a matter of need as opposed to want. And one of the topics in my book, the chapter is called, Women Positioned as an Intruder. And I think we need to start there. We need to recognize and acknowledge that this hasn't been an accidental construction. Corporates don't accidentally work this way, but it was a very deliberate construction. So once we understand that bit, we can start to say we recognize the problem, we recognize how it's embedded. Now let's take the next step and say, how can we unpack it, unpick it, and start to build solutions and frameworks and methodologies to really get to tackling not just the symptom, but also the root issue.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the key takeaways that you have in your book. For those who don't know, we're talking about the book Closing the Gap. And give us a little bit about your takeaways.
The one thing I want everyone who reads the book to take away is primarily there is something that you can do. And there is a lot more that organizations can do, but it's don't. And the reason I wrote this book is don't ask Black women to be the solutions of their own problems. Black women are the most qualified in the US. Black women are, outperforming also in the European and UK space. But the question is always, what do you need? What can you do to help us better understand? And I'm hoping that the book gives a lot of my readers the insights into understanding, look, these are the things you can find out on your own. This is the part of your. Now take that to ask considered questions. Take that to take action. But don't rely on Black women as your source of information to help educate you. And I think that's the main takeaway. The information is there. Make use of it, engage with it, but really start on your own, personal journey, especially when you're in a position of leadership, in a position of influence within an organization. But also that it highlights some of the, I'm going to call them blind spots, things that are touted that they do work and help you, such as mentorship, but that they engage with some of the nuances as to why that doesn't necessarily always work the way it should for Black women if you don't necessarily understand what racial inequity is. So those would be my main takeaway. It's there, it's accessible. And sorry.
No. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I want to get your perspective on this because we talk a lot in the workplace, and there's two words that we use. One is equality, and the other is equity. Mm-hmm. And many times workplaces will feel as though we've done a good job and it looks that way because of equality. But the truth is there really is an equity. And we have this conversation in many sectors, particularly when it comes to the issue of sexism and racism.
Right. And I think there's from a trend perspective, I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding that equitable practice doesn't look equal, because if we're taking into consideration the different systemic barriers that are being faced, the point of getting people equal access to the same opportunities, equitable practice doesn't look the same. The solution isn't the same for each person. And I think a lot of people see outcomes and measure outcomes and think, okay, we have more of, that means we've done a great job. That means we understand the root cause. When in fact they're not. I think I posted this ages ago, but that basically says the cost of me being in a room is I didn't have the same point of entry, or I didn't have to pay the same amount because I'm a Black woman. So that means there are different penalties, different challenges. And we don't always recognize that dealing with those and also solving those issues is a part of equity. We like, it's equal, it should be the same, but we don't face the same challenges, so the solutions can't also be the same. And I think it's a great reminder that equity and equality are not the same thing. We're trying to get to equality, but to get to equality, we need equity first.
Right. So if I'm a woman and I'm out there watching, for our women that are out there watching, what are the tips that you have navigating that workspace, right? Because we understand there's a lot of challenges, and sometimes we don't understand, but you understand. So talk to me about what would be the message for women in navigating this workspace.
Yeah, I would say several things, because the other side of the use of my book is take it as a toolkit or a guide to understand some of the mechanisms of bureaucracy within your organization. But my first tip is always observe, because a lot of times observation kind of goes by. You kind of get into your job, you're doing your job, and you're focused very much on doing the doing of your job. But I would say spend as much time on building your strategy. Where do I want to go? Who are the main people of influence? A strategy for a lot of women feels like a dirty word, but it's not, in the sense of, be very clear as to how you want to get there, and be very intentional as to how you see relationships, because that can also help you navigate the workplace. I've made the same mistake. I didn't observe enough. I jumped in feet first, and that cost me or two, because I wasn't aware of the dynamics within the team. I wasn't aware of not just power dynamics, but also alliances. I shouldn't say it like this to reduce it, but the workplace is very much like, you know, being at school. You still have to be aware of the cliques, the influencers, and the people who have the possibility to influence your career both positively and negatively.
Yeah. What about finding your voice? Because that's key in this whole thing. You got to find your voice. So how do I go about finding my voice while navigating the workspace when I know that this exists?
Yeah. The finding the voice part is really interesting. And I think it comes back down to, what is your chief communication style? So I am extroverted, so I prefer to speak. Okay, I've written a book, but I prefer to speak. I prefer to make videos. And sometimes finding your voice is finding ways to create the opportunity that shines a light on your strengths in terms of communication, whether it's how you structure emails, whether it's how you decide to reach out to people within the organization, because success in and of itself is not silo. So it's how can you find other people within your organization to be part of your support structure, to advise you, but also to be that sparring partner when you're like, look, I don't know how to negotiate this. There's part of you that has to be the face of what you want to say, but you can't underestimate having a very strong support network as you navigate the workplace. And that's as relevant to me now as somebody who's left corporate to run my own consultancy as it was when I first started out in my career, what feels like eons ago now.
So for yourself, talk to me a little bit about how we can address this right now. If I'm saying I'm in a workplace, in a workplace environment right now, I feel like, you know, there's sexism here. We know about the pay discrimination. I want to really have a conversation to really address my pay inequity. What advice do you give somebody in dealing with that just right off the bat?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is, when it comes to pay, most of the time, you have to spend more time building your case. You know, some organizations give you, I would say, negotiation bandwidth, but a lot don't. What your pay rise is what your pay rise is, whether it's inflation linked, whether they've determined it because of the allocation pool, etc. But I would say, before you get to these conversations, don't leave it to the conversation to want to negotiate. Build your case. So if you know that on an annual basis your compensation conversation is happening in March, start to build your case from that exact point, and give yourself a year evidencing the work that you've give language around a team, but what you've done as an individual. Really reiterate that to your boss. Keep track of all the things you do in order to make, as much as, well, to the extent that it's practicable, your case for your pay and your compensation to be undeniable. I can evidence all the things that I've done. These are the objectives that I have. I can evidence that my objectives, I've achieved them with XYZ projects. And if I've delivered on anything, I'm not just doing what I should be doing, but I'm excelling at that, then I believe that my pay should be commensurate to that, and I should get whatever the band might be, especially when you're in situations where you feel dissatisfied. So I say, build the case and don't leave it to the last minute to think about it. Whole year, kind of really being very intentional and strategic about what you would like to get out of it. Now, it's not to say that you may not be disappointed. I think we've all had that. You've expected it, you built your case, and you're still disappointed. The question then you have to ask yourself, if this repeatedly happens, is, does the organization value, and should I be looking for something else? And that would be my main kind of advice.
You know, the problem is that sometimes I can't find my voice because there's this behavior and this thing that goes on, the subversive behavior that really so many people have become prone to, that it makes me want, it gives me laryngitis. I'm not gonna raise my voice, I'm not gonna say anything because there's so much of this subversive behavior that's in the workplace. How do I, counter that? Or first of all, why don't we identify what some of that subversive behavior is that, women have to contend with?
Yeah, there are so many different challenges within the workplace that Black women face, whether it's visibility and scrutiny, whether it's, lack of authority, people challenging our authority, people not believing in our credibility. And a lot of this goes unchecked within organizations. So when the fatigue is there, as you spoke of before, it's really, really difficult to always be able to name it. And I guess in many cases, this is why I wrote about this in the book, because the impact on Black women in the workplace does contribute to exactly that. And it can also lead to a vicious cycle of exhaustion. Exhaustion leads to, I will call them sometimes preventable mistakes, which feeds into people's biases that links back to, lack of credibility. And I think the reason why it's so important to isolate and highlight these subversive behaviors, because they can also be poo-pooed, as it were, as not being important. It's not that much, when actually the impact and the fallout of it is very, very significant, individual, therefore also significant on the damage or the negative impact on the organizations. And I think this is why, from one perspective, from an organizational perspective, it's important that there is space to have these conversations. But from an individual perspective, it's also creating that space of, and I know it sounds trite, self-care, really taking the time to pour into yourself, taking distance from work, because it has a negative impact, not just in that particular job, but going forward, and how you see other organizations, how you even view your career path.
Leanne, we got to get ready to go, but before we leave, please tell people how they can get in touch with you and find out more information about this very powerful topic.
Thank you very much. You can find me on LinkedIn, which is just Leanne-Mair. You can find me on Instagram, which is at LeanneMM, and my website is www.leannemair.com.
All righty. And where can we get the book?
On Amazon, Barnes & Noble, I think Target, and directly at Bloomsbury, US.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us, Leanne. Great conversation. Of course, we got to have you back. Thank you for coming all the way across from the other side of the pond. All right. Listen, we're taking a quick break. We'll be right back with more right after this.
Only 57% of New York City high school students are college ready by their senior year. "55% of high school graduates either have no plans to attend college or are uncertain that they will ever attend. "34% of young adults don't go to college because they can't afford it. Discover what's possible. BronxNet's education programs, internships, and opportunities help engage and inspire Bronx youth and beyond to pursue their passions. Be a part of the BronxNet family. Whether you're interested in our shows, joining a class, or donating to support our mission, visit BronxNet.org to learn more.
Thank you, BronxNet. Congratulations on 30 years. What an amazing accomplishment. On behalf of myself, Alina Dow, and I represent the Dow Twins and the Dow Twins Show, who are young producers. They started, I think, when they were 11, and now they're 14. They started making 30-second little fun facts, and now they are doing 30-minute shows. And it goes to a testament of how much you guys do in the Bronx to make young people want to continue to be involved. I wish you 30 more amazing years and beyond. Thank you for what you do.
And we are back. Our next guest is a trailblazer in the music industry, a serial entrepreneur. She's also a brand strategist. She's the visionary behind a unique co-working space and business incubator that's actually tailored for women. Now, the space transcends the ordinary, offering more than just a physical setting. It's a dynamic platform fostering growth, learning, and collaboration. Here now is the Renaissance woman herself and success consultant, Cloe Love, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
God, thank you. So when we talk about this innovation, obviously for you, working in the industry, music industry has been a passion of yours?
Yes, my dad is a musician, descendant of James Brown, so it's run in my blood, and my husband is the producer, main producer, and songwriter for the company.
So for yourself, obviously, having this musical background, it influences you, and then you find, I was talking last time about finding your voice, but now you found your passion.
Yeah, well, my passion is actually just to help people flourish while they help communities flourish. So that's what my passion and my purpose is, per se. But in music, I grew up in music. I grew up in the studios. I was a studio kid. You know, I met a lot of people growing up. I did late nights with my dad sometimes. So I was excited when I was asked to, you know, be a part of Brook Brothers. I was trying to come on as a songwriter, but that wasn't it. I ended up in the business sector of it. I'm the CEO. But I do help here and there. I'm like, you know, we should put these drums here. We, you know, I still executive produce and do my thing.
Yeah. So for you as a writer, I mean, as being in it right now, you say you've really helped people and yourself. And I want to ask about women with voices, right? Because helping women find their voice and also women with voices. Talk to me about it.
So Women with Voices is my 501c3 nonprofit that was located at Chloe's Corner. That was the headquarters. And I started Women with Voices from my experiences in the music industry. There were so many times people would just walk straight to my husband. They would shake everyone else's hand in the room and just oversee me. And he would constantly have to redirect them to, this is the CEO. This is who has to cut your check.
Right.
And it was just such a crazy experience. And then there's the cattiness sometimes that we see with women on the ladder. But then there's so many amazing women. So we only hear about the cattiness. And I wanted to create a space where all the amazing women who had like minds, who didn't care to be a queen on the island, but build an island of queens, wanted to come together. And so that's going to be a conference. Remember, I said that.
Right.
So, you know, I wanted to build a space for that to help us create that progressive movement together, as well as support in different sectors of where the founders had interest. So mine is business and tech, and so is Chelsea's. It's immigration and tech, and then Jordan is mental health, alopecia and sexual liberation. Tamika is everything that has to do with family, the give backs, parenting, education, and my husband is on the board as well, and he helps men find the direction to help empower their women without feeling emasculated. So our motto, even though it's for women, we don't turn away men. We do honor men who play a key role in women's empowerment and community, and it's pro us doesn't mean anti-you. So we don't want to be the kind of organization where it's like no guys allowed, right? We want to also build that gap, bridge that gap between us and them. It's we're together, we're a community.
You talked about that, you use an example like, you know, people coming by, they shake the hand of your husband, but yet still they bypass you. What's your feeling while you're doing that? You're like, come on now.
You know, I address it. I always address it.
I can feel it. You seem like the one that's going to say something, right? Okay.
And like, we went to look for a new studio space one time, and the guy came in and shook everyone's hand, and I get it, maybe you don't want to touch the woman or something, but you can have manners, right? I'm West Indian, so it's like have manners and still say good afternoon, good evening, I am. If you don't want to shake my hand, if you don't want to touch me, some people have cultural biases of why
Right.
they don't do that. So I understand that, but it doesn't mean you don't acknowledge a person's existence in the room. And the guy is like, oh, well, I didn't shake your hand or say anything because I wasn't sure if you were one of their ladies. And we're in a professional setting. And yeah, I am actually his lady, but I'm also his boss. So
Right.
I'm the one who's here to sign the check if we decide to keep this, take the space. So it's just for men, I just want them to be aware and more conscious of that. It's chauvinistic behavior to say, I didn't want to approach you, a businesswoman with degrees and business acumen, because you were afraid that I was someone's lady and I'm here to sign the check. So I just feel like men have to be more conscious of that in the workplace. We're not in someone's home. We're not at a social setting. This is a work environment. So that part doesn't matter. We're here to do business.
That's a show all by itself. I'm just saying. So talk to me a little about Brothers Music Production.
Brook Brothers. So it
Yeah,
stands
Brook
for,
I'm sorry.
no problem. Stands for Brook Brothers is Brooklyn Brothers. I'm
Right.
a Brooklynite, born and raised.
What part?
So I'm originally from Bed-Stuy, do or die.
Oh, okay.
And then I ended up in the floor, so you can all see.
Okay.
But, Brooklyn is, I take Brooklyn very dear to my heart. I do as much as I can to try to cultivate pride for my city. And Brook Brothers is also one of the things that makes our city pride. It was when we did have the studio for 8 years, everybody was somebody that came to Brooklyn came through there. They shot part of the Biggie documentary, the only official Biggie documentary there. HBO, Simple Mobile. We did so many things in that space. Queen Evans premiered The King and I from that space. The first time we ever heard Lil' Kim sing on a track, it came from that space. So, Brook Brothers was a place for talent to come and get that Manhattan sound and quality without having to pay those prices. So it was a place where a lot of people got, what they needed to move to the next levels.
The feeling for you to be able to provide that, right? Because obviously that has impact. And,
Yeah.
These people have, historical moments, and you have historical moments, because now you say, listen, you know what? We were the ground for this.
Yeah.
So the feeling like that, what's that feeling for you?
So for a while, and I had to work through these things. I was so caught up in just what needs to be done that I never sat in the feeling. I just was moving on to what needed to be done next. I did what I needed to do, and I wouldn't give myself the flowers, if you will, is what people say.
Right.
And this is something that my husband and my sister, who is here with us, is constantly talking to me about, is celebrating the small wins. Because my tagline was the next youngest black billionaire, there wouldn't be a smile until the $1 billion.
Right.
It was like, oh, we did nothing. There's work to do. I don't care
Right.
that there's 500 million in there. We'll smile when it's $1 billion. So I had to learn to really sit back and reflect, like, wow, I was able to be gracious and find gratitude in it, because that's how you get more of it as well, to be able to create that impact. So being able to do something like that, I hope that it inspires others to do the same, to really just pour out what you can. And of course there were some mistakes, of course there were losses, of course there were days where it's like, what am I doing? But I wouldn't change anything for the world, because I learned so much, I gained so much, and I built so much, even for myself, my resilience, my strategies on those mistakes. And even though they were hard at the moment, so many people got to benefit from it. So it's worth it.
Your sister's good. Celebrate small wins. I talk
Yeah,
about that all the time.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
you got to. I mean,
Shout out
I
to
think that,
Chelsea.
I think you
Yeah.
have to, because you can be so caught up in it
Yeah.
that you really don't realize how much you've done,
Yeah.
or what you're doing, or
Yeah.
the impact of it. So
But one thing I would say from experience is your circle, the people who are close to you, that is so important. Outside of Chelsea, she's also part of the circle. She's my sister, but she's my kid's godmother. I have a group of women called my fairy godmothers.
okay,
And Tamika, who is also on the board for Women with Voices, Jordan, who's also on the board, Shani, Ashley, Tasha, and Sasha. These women do not allow me to forget. They are, if I walk across the street and the light is green on time, they're like, good job. Like, they celebrate every waking moment. Sasha's at the studio with me, producing the podcast, coming up with, if I say I want to build a rocket, she would go find the engine and parts. We would be out there blowing stuff up, but she's gonna try.
Right,
You
right,
know,
right.
Shani with I mean, everything that I think about, these women are so ready and willing to say, well, let's try it out. And it doesn't matter if we fail, we're gonna try because we believe in you. And they're constantly reminding me, you did this, you did that, and you're doing this, and this is impactful, and you need to. They take me out. They don't let me forget.
Right.
So it's important. They have a great relationship with my husband, so they're always planning stuff. It's important to make sure that if you're not that person, that the people around you see the value and see you and will remind you and pull you from those places of overworking and just really focusing on the next step without taking a breather and without that self-care.
So for yourself, this is really, you know, that passion, right? That you got, and you got a good team around you.
Yeah.
So as an entrepreneur, what kind of advice do you give to someone else when we talk about that? Because that team could be the ones that can really help you to get there.
Yeah.
Or we've seen the self-destruction that
We've seen the self-destruction
right.
in a lot of ways. So, you know, they're different teams. So just because someone is there to motivate you or to be that person to show up for you doesn't mean that that's someone who needs to be on your company team, right? So I feel like knowing the discernment, we've also seen so many times where it's like, my brother's in a business, but I gotta fire my brother, or my cousin Pookie ain't doing what they need to do. And it's, you have to know where someone's value is in your life. So you may have that team that's there for celebration and always showing up to the events and always going to be there, but it doesn't mean that that person is good with social media management, right? It doesn't mean that that person is a good VP.
Exactly.
So we see a lot of relationships falter because we're putting people in positions that didn't belong there. You really have to evaluate your circle and see people for who they are, and not just putting someone there because it's family, you want to put family on. Family may just be there to support sometimes how they can in their capacity, and you can't fault them if they're not a good, you know, C-level person, because that may not be what they're built for.
Exactly.
So it's really auditing your circle in the sense of knowing where everyone can play a role.
You talk. Well, let's go back to the music industry for a bit before we wrap up. Talk to me about what tips would you have after having so much history. I mean, that's a show all by itself. A couple podcasts, things, you know, that's a series. But from your perspective, that you know how to encapsulate. It just sounds like, what are some of the things that people really need to know?
So what I say to people in the music industry, I say to people in business. You have to know your brand. You have to know your brand values, your messaging, who you're talking to, you know, what they're getting from this, what makes you unique. And you also have to know that your success is not what you see out there. Do not compare yourself to the artist that is touring everywhere and making $100 million. If you can work a job and make $70,000 a year, and you can make $70,000 a year as a musician, you are successful. You have replaced your 9-to-5 for your passion. And if more people understood that and thought like, well, you know, I'm making 6 figures as a musician, I am successful. I'm doing what I love, and someone else is, and there's nothing wrong with working a 9-to-5, but if that's not what you want to do and you're able to still make that type of money, there's success in that. Now, while you're not scaling, that's a whole, you may have to contact someone like me, and we may need to talk about brand strategy and stuff like that. But look at music as a business like anything else. I feel like a lot of people, entrepreneurs and creatives, they're the same mindset. They're visionaries. They want to do this thing. They're passionate, but they don't understand the business structure of it. I don't care if you're selling candles. I don't care if you're coaching. I don't care if you're a musician. You need to be looking at building business credit. You need to be looking at how this is a business. You need to be looking at different ways to distribute your talents, right? So for me, for our music company, we don't just wait for an artist to go platinum or anything like that. We do TV, we do sync licensing, we do a lot of other things. Look for other places to still serve and make your money in music.
So on March 25th, you got something special happening?
Yes.
Putting this all together, got a little boot camp, huh?
Yes. So for the boot camp, we want to really honor Women's History Month and make history together. We are focusing on women starting their 7-figure businesses, and we are running a 5-day boot camp to implement the 5 untold secrets on how to structure, launch, and sustain a 7-figure business. And I'm really excited about that because we usually do panels. We've done grants and stuff for Women's Month, but we celebrate the history that happened behind us, but let's celebrate the history that we can create together. And this is what that boot camp is about. And I'm hoping that we have hundreds of women, maybe thousands of women sign up for this boot camp,
Right.
and that they're ready to start this business. They're ready to take their name in history. You know, they're ready to leave something behind for their families. And families doesn't just mean children. You may be that aunt who put that nephew on, right? That aunt
right.
that left that estate for that nephew or that niece or, you know, that sister, that little sister or something. So we're ready for more women to stand up and not be a part of the 66% that fail in the first year or the 80-something% that fails in the second year, but give you the tools and the things that includes business credit. I talk about business credit and
Okay.
all the tiers and when you're supposed to implement them.
Right.
You know, so that's what the boot camp is. It has a lot of substance. I've attended other people's programs, no disrespect to other coaches. I've gone through other programs, and there's a lot of fluff and there's a lot of things that they tell you, but they keep the best for themselves.
Right.
I don't do that.
You just let it all out.
Yeah, I don't do that.
So
If I eat steak, you eat steak. If I like T-bone, you're gonna eat T-bone. I'm not giving you flank steak.
I'm coming. You say guys are coming. I'm coming.
Yeah,
I'm coming.
yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Men are invited. I don't turn away men at all. I focus on women because of how underserved the community is. But the majority of my clients, as a one-on-one consultant, have been men.
Wow. For real.
Yeah, as a consultant.
Well, that's
have
good.
been men.
I mean, listen. We need the help. So,
Absolutely.
March 25th. How do people get in touch with the boot camp?
So, Instagram, it's Cloe Love, CLOELUV, no H, no O,
Okay. There it is.
no E. So, it's Cloe Love across the board: LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, the website CloeLove.com. Consistent branding.
Just find her. Right? You know, that's it.
Absolutely.
And before we leave, you said you're a descendant of.
James Brown.
Okay. Tell us about the lineage. You go just say, like,
Yeah,
I'm a descendant of James Brown.
So he was, I think maybe I was at one family reunion with him years ago when I was small. And of course, you know, he passed. So my dad is a musician as well. He was in a group when he was younger with his brothers called the Electric Rubber Bands. It's so funny every time I say it. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So he's been a key role in building my music empire as well. When we decided to close the location at Industry City after 8 years, he built an elaborate home studio for us in his home, and that's where we've done interviews there. He surprised us one day and was like, "You guys have this whole studio." So,
Wow.
you know, shout out to Rich, Mix Master Rich is what he goes by, and he's an amazing inspiration, and he's always just, I'm like, okay, I want to build this studio. He'll tell you the pros and the cons. Maybe
Right.
sometimes he go heavy on the cons.
Right.
But once he knows that I'm determined, he's gonna be like, okay, well, let's work through it. My mom is just like, you can do it.
right.
It's like from jump, she's with it, you know.
So she comes with it. You could do it. He's
Yeah,
got the con.
I'm able.
So that's
to
great
do it.
balance.
No, well, I'm the reason I am able to. I'm like, I'll build a plane is because of who my mom is. If I left a 7-figure job and said I wanted to start a magazine, my mom would be like, well, what do we need? She's never gonna keep me pigeonholed to something that doesn't serve me.
Cool. They got sister on side talking
Yeah.
about celebrate wins. You know, you got the
Blessed.
circle, right?
Yeah, yeah. God is great, man.
Well, it's good. Well, Cloe, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me. It
I
was fun.
appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Gotta come again. All right, listen, want to let you know you come to the end of our show today. Hope that you enjoyed this week's discussion on the Bronx Social Justice and Anti-Violence Forum. Now, if you want to join the conversation, present your point of view, visit our social media at BronxNet TV, and then also join us next week. We will continue to elevate the discussion and bring further awareness on the issues across the globe and locally. I'm your host, Daren Jaime, saying take care. God bless. We'll see you next soon.